This happened in the fall of 2022. At the time, I worked evening shifts at a large supermarket outside Indianapolis. The store wasn't open 24 hours. We closed at 11 p.m. every night. Most customers were gone by 10:45. Employees spent the last 15 minutes cleaning, facing shelves, and preparing for closing. The routine never changed. At 10:55 p.m., the closing announcement played. 5 minutes until close. Customers brought their final purchases to the registers. Employees started securing departments. Everything felt normal. By 11:05 p.m., the store appeared empty. The front-end supervisor completed a walkthrough. No customers, no carts, no activity. The all-clear was given. Doors locked, registers counted. Normal procedure. I spent the next half hour restocking shelves in grocery. Several other employees worked nearby. Nothing unusual happened, at least initially. Then around 11:40 p.m., I heard a shopping cart. Not imagined, not mistaken. A real shopping cart. Metal wheels, rolling slowly. My stomach tightened immediately, because the sound came from aisle 22, the canned goods section, a section that should have been completely empty. I stepped into the aisle. Nothing. No customer. No cart. No movement. The aisle sat silent. For several seconds, I stood there confused. Then the cart moved again. Somewhere else. A different aisle. My heart started racing, because now I knew I wasn't imagining it. Someone was inside the building. I informed my supervisor. The response seemed reasonable. A customer accidentally remained inside after closing. It happens. Rarely. But it happens. Management initiated a store-wide search. Employees spread out, checking aisles, checking restrooms, checking storage areas. Nothing. The customer remained invisible. Yet every few minutes someone reported hearing the cart. Near frozen foods. Near produce. Near health and beauty. Always somewhere different. Always gone before anyone arrived. The situation became increasingly strange. Because the store wasn't small. But it wasn't impossible to search either. Eventually security reviewed cameras. And that's when things got weird. Because several cameras captured a shopping cart moving. By itself. Not fast. Not dramatically. Just rolling slowly into view. Then out again. No visible customer. No person pushing it. Nothing. The footage immediately unsettled everyone. Not because we believed anything supernatural. Because we knew cameras have blind spots. Someone had to be there. Had to be. The search continued. Then around midnight, an employee screamed. Everyone immediately ran toward the sound. The scream came from the garden center. A section closed off after business hours. When we arrived, the employee stood frozen, pointing toward a row of outdoor furniture. A shopping cart sat there, completely full. My stomach dropped immediately, because none of those items had been inside the cart earlier. The cart contained food, drinks, household supplies, random merchandise, nearly $400 worth. Someone had clearly been shopping. After closing, inside a locked building, yet nobody could find them. The discovery triggered another search, this time more aggressively. Every aisle, every storage room, every office. Then one employee checked a rarely used stockroom near receiving, and finally found something. Not a person. Evidence. Food wrappers, water bottles, blankets, several backpacks. My stomach tightened immediately, because someone had clearly been staying there. Not visiting. Staying. The police were called. The investigation eventually revealed a former contractor had been secretly entering portions of the building through an old maintenance access point. Someone familiar with the layout. Someone familiar with security schedules. Someone who understood exactly where employees wouldn't look. Authorities eventually located him. Thankfully. But one detail still bothers me. Because security footage showed the shopping cart moving through the store nearly 20 minutes before anyone first heard it. Meaning while we believed the building was empty, someone had already been walking through the aisles. Watching. Waiting. And apparently enjoying the fact that nobody knew he was there. The first time I heard my name, I thought it was a coworker. The second time, I thought someone was messing with me. By the third week, I stopped going down aisle 14 alone, because whatever was calling my name always knew exactly where I was. And every time I followed the voice, the aisle was empty. This happened in late 2021. I worked overnight stocking shifts at a large supermarket outside Pittsburgh. The store closed at midnight. Customers left. The overnight crew arrived, and we spent the next 6 hours restocking shelves before opening. Most nights were boring. Quiet. Predictable. Exactly how I liked them. The overnight crew consisted of 7 employees. A supervisor, several stockers, a forklift operator, a maintenance worker. Nothing unusual. The store itself was enormous. 30 aisles, back storage rooms, a loading dock, employee corridors, more than enough places to lose sight of somebody. Aisle 14 contained cereal, granola bars, oatmeal, and breakfast foods. Not exactly the kind of place you'd expect to become infamous. But eventually nobody wanted to work there, including me. The first incident happened around 2:30 a.m. I was stocking cereal boxes. The store was closed. The building was quiet. Then I heard somebody say, "Chris." My name. Softly. Just loud enough. I immediately looked up. Nobody. The aisle remained empty. I assumed another employee needed something. So I stepped into the main walkway. Nothing. No coworkers nearby. No voices. No movement. The situation felt strange, but not frightening. At least not yet. Several nights later, it happened again. Same aisle. Same voice. Same tone. "Chris." This time the voice sounded closer. Much closer. Like someone standing directly behind me. I spun around immediately. Nothing. Just shelves. Boxes. Silence. For several seconds, I simply stood there. Listening. Waiting. Nothing happened. The experience genuinely bothered me. Because I knew what I'd heard. It wasn't imagination. It wasn't a distant conversation. It was my name. Clearly. Exactly. The incidents continued. Not every night, but often enough. Sometimes once a week. Sometimes multiple times. Always aisle 14. Always after 2 a.m. Always when I was alone. Eventually I mentioned it to another stalker named Jason. His reaction surprised me. Because he'd experienced something similar. Not his name. A whistle. A quiet whistle coming from the same aisle. The discovery immediately made me uncomfortable. Because now it wasn't just me. Other employees noticed things too. One worker reported hearing footsteps. Another reported seeing movement. Several employees refused to work the aisle alone. The stories gradually spread throughout the overnight crew. Most people laughed. At first. Then security footage entered the conversation. One evening, a supervisor reviewed recordings after an unrelated incident. While checking cameras, he noticed something odd. A figure appeared briefly at the end of aisle 14. The image wasn't clear, just enough to resemble a person. The supervisor assumed another employee, then checked schedules. Nobody should have been there. The footage quickly became a topic of discussion, because nobody could identify the figure. The video quality wasn't great. Still, it looked like someone, watching, standing motionless, then disappearing. The explanation seemed obvious. Blind spots, camera glitches, normal security issues. At least that's what management claimed. Then things escalated. One night around 3 a.m., I heard the voice again. Only this time it said more than my name. Much more. The voice said, "Turn around." My blood immediately ran cold. Because the words sounded clear. Extremely clear. Not distant. Not muffled. Close. Very close. I froze. Every instinct told me not to move. For several seconds, I simply stood there. Then slowly turned around. Nothing. Nobody. The aisle remained empty. Completely empty. The experience genuinely shook me. Enough that I reported it immediately. Management finally took the situation seriously. Security reviewed multiple nights of footage and discovered something strange. The unidentified figure appeared repeatedly. Always around the same time. Always near aisle 14. Never visible for long. Never close enough for identification. Just brief appearances. Then gone. The investigation expanded. Additional cameras were installed. Patrols increased. Several employees started checking the aisle together. Nobody found anything. Until one night, around 4 a.m., a maintenance worker noticed a partially hidden access panel behind shelving. An old service opening connected to maintenance corridors built decades earlier. Most employees didn't know it existed. My stomach tightened immediately, because suddenly everything made sense. The noises, the sightings, the voice. Someone had access to parts of the building hidden behind walls. The discovery led to a larger inspection. And that's when investigators found evidence. Food wrappers, water bottles, blankets, flashlights, signs somebody had been spending time inside the hidden corridor system. Not briefly, regularly, possibly for months. The realization disturbed everyone, because while employees stocked shelves and worked overnight shifts, someone may have been moving through the walls, watching, listening, waiting. Authorities were contacted immediately. The hidden areas were secured. The incident stopped, at least officially. But one detail still bothers me, because among the items recovered from the corridor was a notebook. Inside were observations, descriptions of employees, schedules, work habits, page after page. And on one page, I found my name. Beneath it appeared a sentence written weeks before I first heard the voice. A sentence that still gives me chills. It said, "He always works aisle 14 alone," meaning whoever was moving through those hidden corridors had been watching me long before I ever heard my name. Long before I noticed anything unusual. Long before I realized I wasn't alone in that aisle. This happened in 2022. I worked evening shifts at a large supermarket outside St. Louis, Missouri. The store closed at 11 p.m. every night. Most closing shifts followed the same routine. Customers finished shopping. Employees cleaned departments. Managers counted registers. Everyone went home. Simple, predictable, routine. That particular Thursday seemed completely normal. Busy evening. Nothing unusual. Around 10:17 p.m., a man entered through the main entrance. Security footage captured him clearly. Dark hoodie, jeans, black backpack. Nothing remarkable. He grabbed a shopping basket and disappeared into the store. Nobody paid attention. Why would they? He looked like every other customer. The first odd thing happened shortly before closing. A cashier noticed the man wandering near frozen foods. Not shopping, just walking. Slowly, almost aimlessly. The cashier assumed he was deciding what to buy. No big deal. At 10:55 p.m., closing announcements began. Customers headed toward checkout lanes. Employees started securing departments. The man remained inside. Again, not unusual. Plenty of customers lose track of time. At 11 p.m., the doors locked. Customers already inside were allowed to finish shopping. Standard procedure. Most people left within minutes. The man didn't. At 11:10 p.m., another employee saw him near pet supplies. At 11:15 p.m., somebody reported seeing him near produce. At 11:20 p.m., a worker spotted him near health and beauty. The sightings seemed normal at first. Annoying, but normal. The problem? Nobody could actually reach him. Every time someone headed toward his location, he was gone. Not running, not hiding, just gone. The pattern became frustrating, then strange, then unsettling. Around 11:30 p.m., management decided to escort him out personally. A supervisor began searching. 5 minutes later, he radioed security. Because he couldn't find the customer either. The store should have been nearly empty. Yet nobody could locate him. The search expanded. Employees checked every aisle, every restroom, every department. Nothing. No customer. No backpack. No shopping basket. Nothing. Then security reviewed live camera feeds, and finally spotted him, standing near the rear stockroom hallway. A customer should never have been there. Ever. The sight immediately changed the tone of the situation. Several employees headed toward the hallway. By the time they arrived, the man was gone. Again, the corridor sat empty. Completely empty. No doors opening. No footsteps. Nothing. My stomach tightened immediately, because there weren't many places to go. The hallway ended at secured employee areas. Areas requiring key access. Yet somehow he'd disappeared. The search continued. Then one employee discovered something unusual. A stockroom door standing partially open. The door normally remained locked. Always. Security entered first. The room appeared empty, at least initially. Then they noticed food wrappers, water bottles, a flashlight. My stomach dropped immediately, because none of those items belonged there. The discovery suggested somebody had been spending time inside the room. Not briefly, repeatedly. The situation became much more serious. Police were contacted. The building remained secured. Nobody left. Nobody entered. Then investigators reviewed additional footage and discovered something disturbing. The man had visited before, several times. Different nights, different clothing, same backpack, same behavior. Each visit followed a similar pattern. Enter, wander, move toward employee areas, disappear. The realization genuinely shocked management, because nobody remembered him. Yet cameras showed multiple visits stretching back months. Then investigators found something else. A hidden access point, an old maintenance passage behind shelving near the rear of the building. A passage most employees didn't know existed. The opening connected several unused utility areas built during earlier renovations. And inside, they found evidence. Lots of evidence. Blankets, food, water, battery-powered lanterns, backpacks, personal belongings. Someone had clearly been living there. Not overnight, long-term, possibly for months. The realization hit everyone hard, because while employees worked late shifts and stocked shelves, someone may have been living inside the building, watching, listening, learning routines, learning schedules. The investigation expanded immediately. Authorities eventually identified a suspect. A former employee, someone familiar with the layout, someone familiar with restricted areas, someone who understood how to avoid detection. Unfortunately, he disappeared before officers located him. The hidden spaces were sealed, security upgraded, the incident stopped, at least officially. But one detail still bothers me, because among the belongings recovered from the hidden area was a notebook. Several notebooks, actually. Most contained observations, employee schedules, security patrol times, delivery information, routine details. Then investigators found a section devoted entirely to closing employees. Names, descriptions, habits, pages of notes, including mine. One entry described exactly how I performed nightly aisle checks. Another listed the order I locked department gates. Details I'd never shared with anyone. Then investigators showed me the final page. The page written on the night the customer entered at 10:17 p.m. The night we spent hours searching for him. The page contained only one sentence. A sentence written before the store closed. Before the search began. Before anyone knew he was missing. It read, "Staying tonight." Those two words still bother me, because they weren't written after he disappeared. They weren't written after the search. They were written before any of it happened. Meaning whoever wrote them already knew exactly what was going to happen. He wasn't trapped inside the supermarket. He never intended to leave.